Husband, 35 male, thinks I'm 26F, too big. What should I do? I've always been really skinny and wanted to get fitter and more muscular.
130 pounds, 5 feet 7 inches.
I've been going to the gym consistently with my husband and we both gained around 20 pounds of mass, mostly muscle.
The other night my husband told me he prefers me back when I was skinnier at 130 pounds.
However, I'm pissed because I've been training really hard and feel like he just poop-ed on my gym gains. He keeps saying I'm too big.
I mostly just work out legs and glutes. I don't have giant arms of anything lol.
Am I right to feel like he's an asshole?
I feel really healthy and strong and really am loving the extra weight I put on. And plus as a nurse it helps me with lifting patients and not feeling like I'm dying at the end of the workday.
As you age, that muscle is harder to build. Having strong muscles will be so beneficial to your overall health when you are older.
Tell him to kick rocks and keep lifting. 85-year-old, you will appreciate it. Let me guess, you were 19 and he was 29 when you met.
You just need to consider if you want to be with someone who values thinness over fitness, health. Is that something you're willing to sacrifice to stay attractive to him?
Personally, I'd be out.
Can't fathom being upset my wife put on 20 pounds of muscle mostly in legs and ass. Lol. Yours is the kind of age gap that I tend to not raise my eyebrows at until the older party starts acting like this. I don't know if this applies to this situation, but there are so many times I've seen young women get with older men only for them to be thrown out once they stop resembling teenagers, because these guys value the appearance of youth, aka getting to bang someone they can pretend is a 15-year-old, over anything else. If he's acting like this over an objectively positive body change, how would he behave if you get pregnant and you get softer and covered in stretch marks? How would he behave if your thyroid failed and you gained a bunch of weight?
Is he here through sickness and in health, or is he here in skinny youthfulness and nothing else? I weight lift and when I started was around 120,130 at 5 feet 8 and RN I'm 150, but in the best shape I've ever been.
Being this height we can be this heavy, and girl, you should be proud that you have this muscle. Sometimes I have a hard time looking at the way I used to look, but I realize that this was the goal all along. Don't let him ruin your progress because he's emasculated.
Keep lifting, girl, it's not for him anyway.
My husband, 40M, gets hurt that I, 42F, reject him. Help me communicate?
This seems small potatoes, but it's my biggest and only complaint with my marriage and I don't want to throw in the towel over this.
My husband loves to touch me, but 99.9% of the time it's laser focused on my nipples.
Touching them, pinching them, squeezing them.
Apropos of nothing, I'm just standing there washing the dishes or something.
He doesn't hurt me, but I get very touched out by it very easily. This is my only boundary he really struggles with. I have explained the why. Have assured him it has nothing to do with him. I just have sensitive nipples and don't want them touched unless we are having sex.
I give him options when I'm feeling touched out. I.e., I don't mind if you touch me literally anywhere else, just not my nipples, and he then tries to just touch them super lightly. I'll move his hands to my waist, my hips, anywhere else and explain again. Unless I just grit my teeth and wait for him to stop, which makes him feel rejected because I'm not responding, it gets to where I snap and push his hands away, or, if they move right back up, slap them away. Then he gets even more hurt. Then he will shut down completely and won't touch me at all. He'll reach out to hug me and snatch his hands back and shuffle away. I am reasonably sure he's neurodivergent, but was socialized to not ask for help and never talk about feelings. I love him to pieces, but this is becoming a complete nightmare. I've tried to suggest counseling in the past, but he was very uncomfortable with the idea. Is there any way I could be wording this differently so he doesn't feel rejected? I'm starting to feel rejected that he only wants my nipples and not any other part of me. I love to be held and hugged, and I've told him that, but then when I give him a hug his hand goes right for the nips 9 times out of 10. Anyone successfully communicated this to their spouse? How did you do it? Honestly, I wouldn't try to soften the wording or anything. He's being very selfish and inconsiderate with your one and only boundary. The only thing I can think of is to approach like this: we need to talk about my boundary for touching. I've told you before and I feel like you're still ignoring. So I want you to tell me, why do I say I don't like being touched there? It sounds so childish, but the purpose is to have him say it himself while you have your boundary to make sure he understands. Anyone else basically gag in their mouth a little when they read these stories of grown men acting like toddlers over not being able to grope and fondle their partners?
I would literally lose all attraction instantly and permanently. I am reasonably sure he's neurodivergent. He can still take no for an answer. Blaming neurodivergency is a gross cop-out. He literally does not care that it bothers you, because it excites him. You know what I'd do? Scream in his face not to touch me again. He's capable of understanding your boundaries and respecting them, and he's decided that his wants outweigh your comfort and autonomy, and he's going to keep doing it. Then he sulks and guilt trips you about it. The whole thing is abusive. Tell him to stop and make it clear your marriage is at risk if he doesn't. That might get through to him, but I wouldn't bet on it. Don't blame this on neurodivergence. That's bullshit and an insult to every person out there with spicy brains, and school children the world over, who learned not to touch others when they don't like it. Don't touch me there, is all you need to say. Push his hand away, get really angry and tell never to do that again. He's been told more than once. And don't let his hurt feelings make you feel bad. He's an adult, stop treating like a baby. He's mad? Stay big mad then, my guy. Simple. Time to train him like he's an animal. Every time he touches your nips outside of sex, pinch his nipples. Hard. If he complains, use his own whiny arguments back. A neep for a nope, until he learns. Oh, and grow your nails out. Note: this is not actually productive advice, but plenty of people have already given you good, sensible options, so I'm just gonna throw out the FAFO choice. How do I, 28F, tell my husband, 27M, it's over without him breaking down again? Info: the subreddit rules ask for, I am 28, and my husband is 27. He's content to call himself my husband but won't actually marry me. We've been together 10 years. I've been with him since high school, and 2 years ago thought we would beat the high school couples always break up rule. I've always been scared of pregnancy. That's no secret. But a while back we saw family. He's never seen me interact with young kids, 8 and under, and I think got baby rabies. He begged me for kids, promised to do whatever I needed to have kids. He just really wanted to have a family with me. My husband told me he saw a vision from God. Himself, in an office, surrounded by paperwork. He was miserable. And then an alternate future. One with me and children. Happiness. He said he couldn't ignore that. So I said yes. We started trying immediate. 2 months later all intimacy stopped. That's when he started second-guessing it. Kids are a bad idea. We can't afford them. We have to move. What if he was a bad dad? What if they were allergic to our cats? On and on. He suggested adopting. I was okay with it. I'm still worried I'd hurt myself if I got pregnant by falling due to the bad ankle. But the ages he wanted to adopt kept getting higher and higher. And then he said he hates kids, doesn't want kids, never did, and I was pushing him for them. Maybe later give him more time. I seriously started considering breaking up when that happened. But I stuck around. He started at a new job late last year. We didn't see family until after the holidays because of it, and our holidays were severely impacted by the job. We didn't even set up a tree. I was very upset, and we fought over it. I dropped it, like always. When our Valentines went the same as last year, movie and a dinner at a high-end restaurant, and then a night in a hotel, I was disappointed but okay. He had suggested we do some things the day of our actual anniversary exactly 1 week later. So I figured hey, he split it up. No big deal. And February 21st went well. There was a moment there that I felt very close to them. It was like we had that passion, that love, and I was ready to not have kids until we're more stable, whatever that looked like to him. I was okay with that. Because eventually we would have them. And I thought he was going to propose. He looked so intense, so focused, I swore that was the moment. I got excited. I kissed him, and then waited. But then he looked away and said something unrelated, and we went home. I was frustrated. I spent hours making something a million tiny notes for a bad day and a booklet of memories. I burned it all. I told him, this is what you're doing to me. I will not put that much effort into you again, until something changes. Early this month we signed the lease to renew at our current apartment. And those arguments came back creeping around in my head and reminding me I wouldn't have that promised future.
Because we both know he'd be a great dad, but he's too scared to ever actually do it. He never will.
I told him it was over after an argument. He broke down in front of me and begged. Promised me everything. I hesitated, but he said he can't make it without me, he'd kill himself. I relented and said okay, we'll try again. Start over. He'll find someone to take over the lease and we'll get a house. We'll get married. We could start doing the things to adopt. He got into a car accident last week, very painful but not debilitating injuries. Bad back pain, mostly. I didn't even go to the hospital. He just texted me and I texted back.
His friend took a charger to the hospital for him since I can't drive and so couldn't take him one. That friend lives in the same apartment complex.
But I didn't go with him. I felt nothing. He was alive, that's all that mattered to me.
But now I'm left knowing I don't love him the same anymore.
I care for him, I love him, but I no longer see him as my future partner. He hasn't asked for intimacy since the accident, but I don't love him that way anymore and wouldn't give it to him if he asked. It's like everything is just shut off. I waited 10 years for him to graduate and marry me. I stayed when the new job he got in October, wouldn't change anything, but actually messed up all our holidays, including Halloween. I just don't want to do it anymore.
How do I keep him from breaking down again?
I want this to be over, and I need to do it as gently as possible. Any tips would be appreciated. Edit. He is home from the hospital as of when I made the post. I didn't clarify he was home already, sorry. The injuries are severe strain and contusions of lumbar paraspinal muscles. IDK what that means.
Edit. At the end, because I didn't know where else to put this, I made him book therapy and psych appointments when the vision happened. Both said he's okay.
He's never had one before or since.
Major edit. People are being harsher on him than I thought, and more information came up in a comment, so here's more info. He's fucking perfect. I can't drive?
Fine. Here's a credit card for Uber.
I don't want to cook?
Okay, he will. I couldn't clean for a bit, so he hired someone. He pays me cash monthly in lieu of me having a job. I had a huge mental breakdown 5 years ago, and he helped me through it when I had to stop working and go to treatment. He has done so fucking much for me. It is only because I am mentally stable that I am confident I could leave, get and keep a job, and survive. I just feel guilty for it. All of it. He did so much and now I want to leave? But kids, extended families, holidays, where we live, we should agree on that. I also want to be more independent, be normal again and get a job, learn to drive. He's talking about taking me to lessons. It just makes me feel guiltier for being unhappy. Anything before 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time didn't have this last edit's info in their advice. Edit. I'm sleeping on it, and seeing if a couple more replies come in, but I'm done commenting now. Thanks y'all. I have a lot to think about.
Probably know how this is going to go.
Really appreciate the harshness and the kindness.
Special thanks to helpful name Vexbox and 1DM person. Thanks for letting me vent less than 3 AL significant other. It was bothering me so I had to go look it up. I haven't dug out that chain of emails in over a year. It was amitriptyline. That's the med the pharmacy swapped out for my lamotrigine and triggered the breakdown.
I was swapping dosages of lamotrigine and didn't know what the new size looked like, just took it from the pharmacy and assumed it was right. I always check pill descriptions, now you should too.
Make sure it matches.
Too long did not read. Husband won't actually marry me despite saying he would. Started trying for kids at his suggestion, then he shut it down and said no kids for at least 5 years. I tried to break up and he promised to change.
He got into a car accident and I felt relieved he was alive, but only as if he were an acquaintance, not a partner.
I need advice on how to break up for good this time. He's not your husband, for one thing. He's your long-term boyfriend.
You're only with him because he emotionally manipulated you with threats of self-harm.
Just leave. If he threatens to hurt himself, call EMS. You don't have to engage with him, just go.
How do I keep him from breaking down again?
You can't.
You have no control over how he reacts. You only have control over what you do and say. This sounds like possible mental illness.
The visions from God. The hot, cool want love kids, hate them. You don't worry about his breaking down.
That's not your problem.
You leave and let him clean up his own mess. Time to walk.
If he threatens suicide, call a wellness check on him.
Question. Why couldn't you go to your family on your own for the holidays?
Why sit home alone feeling sad, while he was working?
Also, stop calling him your husband and wanting children with him. Never do wife stuff. Treat someone like a husband, unless you're actually married.
Someone who refuses to commit to you and keeps stringing you along doesn't deserve the title.
Please stop calling him your husband.
A husband is a man that marries you.
He's brainwashed you into accepting that for 10 years. My 30M mom, 59F, hates my wife, 30F. Is going no contact the only option?
Long story, so I'll summarize. My wife and I have married for 8 years and have been together for nearly 10. At the start of our relationship, my wife and my mom got along great. My mom even told me that she thinks I found the one.
Things started to change after we got engaged.
My wife chose not to take my mom wedding dress shopping and took her grandmother, her mother and her 2 maids of honor. My mom also said the bridal showers made her and my sister feel very uncomfortable because my wife comes from money and my family was lower middle class. Even more background, my mom grew up dirt poor and suffered a lot of abuse growing up, which I think gave her a lot of undiagnosed mental health issues.
My mom told me all of this and I was able to communicate this to my wife.
My wife did her best to make her and my family feel included in the wedding, and I think overall it went very well and I thought things were great. For years, things stood like that, just fine. My wife felt she had to walk on some eggshells not to offend my mom, but she was capable and willing to do this. However, one time during a family trip, my mom broke down and told me she was having a hard time letting go of me and how we used to be best friends and now she doesn't know me. This was 5 years into my marriage and I told her I thought it was strange how it was just now coming up.
But alas, things changed for the worse when my wife got pregnant with our child, M2.
Once we announced that she was pregnant, my mom made it known that she was going to buy a pack of diapers every time my dad got paid. My mom has always been a stay-at-home mom. A few months into the pregnancy, my wife let it slip that her mom, my mill, was planning on a big diaper drop. Once my mom heard this, she broke down again about how her gifts are never enough and that she feels like my wife and I feel that she's not going to be good enough for our future child.
Also, a few months after, at lunch, we got on the topic of the birthing room. I told my mom, dad and my wife that I was comfortable with whatever my wife wanted. My wife said she wanted me, her mom and her cousin in the room. My mom immediately busted out into tears about how she wasn't good enough to be in the room for her first grandchild. My wife explained that she would just be more comfortable with her mom, me and her cousin, and my mom responded that when she birthed me her mother-in-law, my grandmother, was there in the room and she was uncomfortable but knew it was a special time for my grandmother. My wife eventually apologized and they reconciled to let bygones be bygones. This conversation turned out to be moot anyways because with COVID restrictions at the time, I was the only person allowed in. Fast forward to the night before my son's first birthday. We're eating dinner and my wife is showing my mom that she always squishes his blueberries before feeding them to my son. My mom yells, "Do you guys think I'm stupid?" I've raised children before. This blew up into a huge fight. Once again about my mom feeling that she's never going to be good enough to be around my son and how me and my wife make everyone feel uncomfortable with our strict parenting techniques. She also said a lot of things about my wife personally, even calling her a snobby bitch at some point, and pretty much ruined my son's first birthday. A few months later, my mom apologized for saying all of those things before my son's birthday but didn't exactly apologize for what she said. My wife did not forgive her, rightfully so, but said she could come around still because my wife did not want to ask me to cut my mom out our lives. Fast forward once again to a few weeks ago. My mother-in-law comes in to watch my son when I was traveling for work because my wife, who's a nurse and works 12-hour shifts, cannot pick my son up from daycare. My mom gets her feelings hurt and says, "I just never feel like I'm good enough." This one was on me because I had previously told my mom she could watch my son when I went on this trip. I had to travel again a few weeks later and we told her she could watch my son then. She came in on a Friday and was supposed to stay a week. Things were great for the first few days, but then the day before I'm supposed to leave for work we have another incident.
My wife was planning on making lunch, but my mom said she going to go get a tea from a fast food chain. I asked my mom to just get me a snack, so I can still eat my wife's lunch. And my mom comes home with my snack, my drink and a full combo for herself.
For context, my mom does have a medical issue where she needs to eat or she has issues.
My mom explained that she cannot wait that long to eat between meals, but my wife felt like she did not want to eat her cooking and was pretty passive-aggressive the rest of the day. Eventually, my mom catches on that my wife is upset and calls her out for not talking to her. This starts a big fight and my mom goes and stays in a hotel but still watches my son while I'm gone.
I come back early from my work trip to minimize the time that my wife and my mom have to be alone.
My mom calls me a few days later and tells me to not talk to her if my wife is around. She also says her biggest regret is that my friend introduced me and my wife and she wishes that I picked a wife that could get along better with the family. She says for my sake because she knows my wife gives me hell. She can exit the picture and my wife can have what she always wanted me to herself and my mom out of the picture. My wife has made some mistakes but I would say 80% of the issues come from my mom. I have told both my wife and my mom that I support my wife in this, but obviously this is still tough on me to not have a relationship with my mother. What should I do?
Your mom is making everything about herself.
If she can't act like an adult and be respectful, then I would limit contact to holidays and see how that goes. You realize this is on your mom?
She's being fucking weird. She's very selfish and self-involved.
Everything has to be about her, it seems. As you've identified, your mom sounds like she has mental health issues and unresolved issues from her upbringing that is leading to these problems for you and your family. Continue to stand by your wife.
Go low contact if needed with your mom.
And maybe even encourage your mom to get therapy. It's never too late, or at least see a therapist yourself to help deal with the guilty feelings you have, although you nor your wife haven't done anything wrong.
Your mother is dramatic and high maintenance.
It is a miracle that your wife is still tolerant of her at all with her antics. Your mom has been pulling this needy, passive-aggressive, insecure, I'm not good enough bullshit for years.
Your wife is sick of walking on eggshells and I don't blame her. No matter what she does, her mother-in-law is going to find a way to make it about her and how everything is a personal attack.
Your mom is deeply insecure and is going to feel like she is not good enough no matter what you do.
It would get old fast. Who wants to manage an adult's feelings while also managing a toddler's feelings?
My only thought after reading this is what an absolutely terrible husband you are. Your mom has repeatedly disrespected and verbally abused your wife and you've stood by and let it happen.
If you have a flying fuck about your wife, you would have given your mother an ultimatum a long time ago. My husband loves his mom, but if she pulled this shit with me, he would rip her a new one. What kind of husband are you even?